What's up guys, my name is Dari and I hope that you have a wonderful day. What we've done so far was a lot of static stuff, which is alright, but that's not the reason why you should use Laravel. Our main goal is to basically put data inside our database, put it in the code and do something with it. And for that, Laravel comes with a very cool tool called Eloquent. Besides the power of Eloquent, it's also one of the most important features when working with databases, and in my opinion, this is where you see the actual difference with PHP or any other PHP framework. Eloquent is an ORM. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapper. This might sound pretty scary or difficult, but you will get used to it very soon. ORM basically allows you to write queries using the object-oriented paradigm. So not in a programming language, but more using Laravel's language of choice instead of SQL. Before we hop right into writing queries and other stuff, I want to show you how the database credentials are stored. In our root directory, we have a folder called config. So let's click on it. And right here, you see a lot of files that we might need later on. But for now, let's just open the database.php file. We also need to open our .env file. So let's do that as well. Right here, you can find your database variables that are referring to the variables inside the database.php file. As you can see, our D file refers to our environment variable called dbConnection and it's MySQL. So if you want to change it or use another database provider, change it right here. But we will be using MySQL for this course, so let's keep it like this. There are lots of other drivers that you could use. We got SQLite right here. We have MySQL, of course. We have pgSQL, SQL SRV, which I actually never worked with. But keep in mind that you could also edit or delete these named connections or create your own. A good thing to know is that you could also have more than one connection. You can make up to 5 database connections and there are a few reasons why. Let's say that you have multiple types of data, right? Or you might reach from one and write to another. That's when it's very handy to use 2 drivers. So let's create our own connection. In our .env file, let's fill in the fields that we have. Like I said, our database driver is MySQL. Our database host is, well, for me, it has to be my local host. So play around with it. The database port is alright. The database name, well, we haven't created yet, but we will do it in a second. The database username is root, and my database password is Dari1234. If you don't have a password, just keep it empty. Alright, what we need to do now is to hop to the terminal, and right here, let's go into MySQL. And to do that, let's write down MySQL-u root-p. It will ask for a password, and my password is Dari1234, like I just said. Let's hit enter. And right now, we're in our MySQL. So what we need to do first is to create our database, right? So let's say create database called first project. Let's hit enter. And you can see that one row has been affected. Now, to see if it works, let's write down show databases. And as you can see right here, first project has been created. And the way I prefer to work is to not close off MySQL, but just to open a new tab. And let's go right into our desktop workspace first projects. So we don't need to fill in our password every single time we want to go into MySQL. You might think that it's very difficult to set up a table with the right data types and stuff in the command line, which you probably have done with phpMyAdmin. Databases in Laravel makes it a lot easier as well. What we need is something called a migration, which is a new term in this course. And you can see a migration as the version control for your database. So, how in heck do we create a migration? You can run it right inside of the command line. But before we do that, we need to set up our controller and our model. So first, let's create our controller. So let's say php artisan make me a controller called posts controller. Now what we need to do is to go to our controller. Let's close off the .env and database file because we don't need it. Alright, let's open the app, HTTP, controllers, post controller. In here, let's create a new function called public function index. What we want to do is to return a view. with a path to post/index. Alright, let's create that specific view now. Alright, so let's open resources, views. Let's create a new folder called posts. Let's create a new file in there called index.blade.php. And let's write down post for a second. What's next? Well, we need to create our route. So let's open routes, web.php, and I hope you're getting a little bit more familiar with it. So let's add a new use. Well, we could actually copy it because it's in the same directory. And let's change the pages controller to posts controller. Now let's create our endpoint. So posts endpoint, which is a route get request to /posts, comma, pass in the posts controller, class, comma, and the method is index. Alright, let's save it. Let's save my index.blade as well, and my post controller to be sure. Alright, let's hop to Google Chrome. Let's change the endpoint to /posts, and post has been printed out. Alright, are we done? Or do we need something else? Well, if you're familiar with MVC, we need to have a model, right? In order to interact with the database. So let's create a model as well. Let's hop to iTerm again. Let's write down PHP artisan make me a model called post. And it needs to be singular. Let's hit enter. Our model has been created successfully. And like I've said before, models are stored right inside of our app directory. But instead of going to controllers, we have a folder called models. So let's open post model. What we want to do right now is to create tables, and therefore we need to add migrations. Now, there are two ways how we could do this. The way I don't prefer is to use the migration command. So let's hop to iTerm, and inside our terminal is to basically say PHP artisan make me a migration called create posts table. So we will create a migration with the name create posts table. And honestly, this is not the best way to create a migration. What you want to do is to automatically create one when we create our model. Because that's where a model is used for, right? To interact with our migrations. So let's hop to Visual Studio Code and let's delete our post model. We don't need it. Let's hop back to iTerm and let's get rid of the command as well. Let me zoom in. All right. And in here, let's create our new model and our migration. So let's say PHP artisan make me a model called post space, and let's add a -m flag, which will automatically create a migration for us. Let's run it. All right, you can see that our migration and model have been created successfully. Now your next question might be, well, Dari, where are my migrations stored? So let's open Visual Studio Code. Let me actually close off the routes and the views because we don't need it. And as you can see, we have a database folder. So let's open it. And you can see a migrations folder. So let's click on it. And let me actually make this a little bit bigger, because you can see that we have more than one migration and we only have created one. Well, Laravel comes with a default migration of a login system, of the register system, create password, password reset, and so on. This is something that we will cover later on. Now what we do see is the create posts table right here. So let's open it and let me make it smaller again because we don't need the rest. Right here you see our migration. Well, we have a up method and a down method. Now how this works is whenever you run the migrate command, it will look for the earliest date of your migration, as you could see right here, and it will run the up method. Like it says, you're migrating it up at this point. And a very cool thing is that you could also roll back your migration. So you don't need to delete it inside your MySQL manually, but you could do it inside the down method, which you will see because it has a drop if exist. And it will drop the table posts. Little recap. The up method migrates everything inside of it. And the down method will undo everything that has been migrated. Right now, we're actually ready to create our first table. Whether in a create table call or a modify table call, it will always use the instance of blueprint that's passed into the closure of the schema. If we click true on blueprint, You can see all the various methods available for creating columns, and you don't need to learn them right now because it will come during this course. You can create integers, string, binaries, you can build stuff, you can add fluid indexes, and way more. Alright, we're ready to create our first table. Let me open my migration again. And what we don't need is our ID and timestamp because I want to create everything from scratch. So let's delete it. What do we need when we want to create a post? Well, we have our table variable, which has a method called increments in it. Now, inside the parentheses, we need to write down the table name. So in our case, it's ID. We could pass in an integer right here instead of increments, but then we need to manually increase it every single time. So why should we not use our increment method that we have? So what's next? Well, every post has a title. So what's next? Well, every post has its own title. So what we could do is to say table, which is a string, and the name is title. So the column name is title, the data type is string. We have a body, so table medium text, and let's give it a name of body. Let's also create a timestamp to know when it has been created. So let's say table timestamps. Once you have your migration defined, which I have right now, we are actually ready to run it. It will not change it automatically when you save the file like I'm doing right now, because we need to run a very easy command. Let's hop to iterm and let's write down php artisan migrate. Just as easy as that. Let's hit enter and you can see that it called the up method of all the migrations that we had. Every single time you run this specific command, it will check whether you're ready to run all available migrations. So if there are no typos or whatsoever in your up method. And as you can see, it has migrated the post table that we just created. So let's hop to MySQL. In here, let's say show tables. Oh, let's first say use first project, excuse me. All right, then let's say show tables. And you can see that we have a users table, post table that we need, password reset, migrations, and failed jobs. Don't look at the others for now. What we need to do is to say desk, so descending our table posts. Let's hit enter. All right, and you can see that we have a column, ID, title, body, created at, and updated at. Now there are a couple other commands related to migrations that I would like to show you. The first migration is, well, let me go to another tab, php artisan migrate install. And what this will do is keep track of which migrations you have or haven't run. Let's hit enter. Right now it won't work because it's pretty much the same as the php artisan migrate command, because it will be run automatically behind the scenes when we migrate. The second command is the migrate reset, which will call the down method inside our migration. So if you run it and go to MySQL, try to desk our posts again, you can see that our table post does not exist anymore because we have rolled it back. We also have php artisan migrate refresh. And this will roll back every database migration you've run on this instance and then runs every migration available. And this is basically the same as the reset, but it will also migrate it. So right now, if you hop to MySQL and say desk post again, you can see that it resetted it and then it run our migrations again. There are 3 more commands, but honestly, we won't be using them a lot. But I will just tell you what they do, but I won't perform the commands. We have the php artisan migrate fresh, which will drop all of your tables and run every migration available. It's the same as the refresh, but this won't use a down migration. It will just delete the tables and then runs the up migration again. We have the rollback, which will, well, basically roll it back. And the last one is the status. And we could actually run this one because it will just show a table listing of every migration, whether or not it has been run yet in this environment. This was it for this video about databases and migrations. If you do like my videos and you want to see more, or you just want to support the channel, just click on the subscribe button down below and don't forget to like this video.